Dear learners, welcome. The purpose of this video is to improve your listening skills, and it helps you understand the story by providing vocabulary. There are also some comprehension questions and a quick competition that you can answer. By the way, enjoy this video, and I hope you like the story. Okay, let's begin. Island of the Blue Dolphins by Scott Odell. Vocabulary Review. Chapter 3. Shout. To say something in a loud voice, to speak loudly or angrily to somebody. Reach. To arrive at the place that you have been traveling to. Hut. A small, simply built house or shelter, usually consisting of one room. Coast. The land next to or near to the sea, seashore. Footprint. The mark made by a person's or animal's foot. Destroy. To damage something so badly that it cannot be used. Shine. To produce or reflect light, to be bright. Pale. Having skin that is very light in color, having skin that has less color than usual because of illness, a strong emotion, etc. Bite. To cut, wound, or tear with the teeth by making a small hole or mark in their skin. Hill. An area of land that is higher than the land around it, but smaller than a mountain. Chapter 3. Ramo my brother. Nanko walked up and down outside the houses. Hurry up! He shouted. The wind is growing strong. The ship will leave without you. I filled 2 bags with the things that I needed, cooking pots, knives, beads. Eulape packed 2. Then she took some blue earth and drew a thin line across her nose and face. In Galas this is a sign that a girl is unmarried. The ship is leaving, Nanko shouted. It will come again after the storm, Eulape replied. My sister was in love with Nanko, but she laughed at him. Other men will come to the island, she shouted. They will be nicer and stronger than the men who leave. Nanko shouted back happily, you are all such ugly women that they will be afraid. And they will go away again? The wind was strong when we left the village. Before long Ramo told me that his fishing spear was back there. Do not go back to the house, I said. If you do, you will miss the ship. He ran on in front of us then. The waves were very high, so the ship had to stay a long way from the beach. 4 white men were standing next to 2 boats on the sand. The men talked to us in their strange language, and we could not answer them. Our men and boys, except Nanko and Chief Matasipe, were already on the ship. Nanko said that Ramo was there too. Matasipe ordered the women into 2 groups. The boats were pushed into the water, and we all climbed into them. Away from the coast the great waves hit the boats. At one moment we could see the ship, and then a wave hid it from us. But we came to it at last and were all safe again. The ship was many times bigger than our biggest boat. Its chief was a young white man with blue eyes and a black beard. He shouted orders to his men, and the white sails went up. I called to Ramo, but the wind was louder than my voice. Ramo did not answer. I looked for him and continued to call. He did not come. Nobody knew where he was. I went to Nanko. In great fear I cried, where is my brother? He is on the ship, Nanko said. He came by the first boat. Eulape was with us, and she was looking across the sea towards the island. My eyes followed hers. Ramo was running along the cliff and holding his spear above his head. The ship was moving away. Everyone was looking at the cliff, even the white men. I ran to one of them and showed him my brother. He turned away from me. Chief Matisipe came to me. "We cannot stop for Remo," he said. "If we do, the wind will send the ship onto the rocks. We have to stop," I cried. "We have to. The ship will come back for him," Matisipe said. "He will be safe. There is food and water, and he can sleep in the village." "No," I cried. Matisipe's face was like stone. Other people repeated his words, but they made me feel no better. The ship turned towards the east. At that moment I walked to the side of the ship and jumped into the sea. A wave passed over my head. I went down and down in the water. The ship seemed far from me when I came up again. I could not swim because I was holding my heavy bag. So, I opened my fingers and did not see the bag again. I was a good swimmer and, even in the storm, I was not afraid. On the way to the beach, I thought of Remo. I will find a stick and beat him, I thought. He has been a very bad boy. Then I reached the beach and saw him on the sand. He was holding his spear and looking very sad. I forgot about the stick. I just fell on my knees and put my arms around him. "When will the ship come back?" he asked. There were tears in his eyes. "Soon," I said. My otter skin coat was very wet, and I was wearing one string of beads. All my other things were gone, and my beautiful skirt was destroyed. The dogs were in the village when we returned to it. Almost all the food was gone. Remo and I had to search hard for a little fish. The noise of the dogs woke me many times during the night. In the morning they ran away towards the west. That day we looked for food. The waves were too big, so we could not go out on the rocks. I collected birds' eggs from the cliff. Remo found a little pool and caught some small fish with his spear. He looked very pleased when he brought them home. Remo wanted me to forgive him. The dogs came again that night when they smelt the fish. They sat on a little hill outside the village until morning. The next day the sea was calmer, and we were able to collect shellfish from the rocks. Later, we stood on the cliff. The air was very clear, and we could see far out to sea. "Will the ship come back today?" Remo asked. "Perhaps," I answered. But I did not think so. Remo's black eyes were shining. "I will be sorry if it comes," he said. "Why?" I asked. "Because I like it here with you," he said. "We can have more fun without the others. Tomorrow I shall go to the place where we hid the boats. I am going to bring one back here. We can use it when we are fishing. And we will be able to go looking around the island." "The boats are on the rocks," I said, "and they are very heavy. You are not strong enough to move them." Remo stood up straight and pushed his spear into the ground. "I am the son of Chovig," he said. "Don't you remember?" "I remember," I answered. "But you are a small son. One day you will be strong enough to lift a large boat." "I am the son of Chovig," he said again. His eyes grew large. "I am his son. And now I am chief of Galazet because Chovig is dead. But first you have to become a man," I said. "You know our ways. We test every young man. I will look for the necessary plants and insects." Remo grew pale. He knew the tests that we used. He knew that they were very painful. Quickly I said, "But only men can give the tests. And there are no men here. So, you cannot take the tests, Chief Remo." He smiled then and said, "Perhaps I will change my name. I will try to think of a better one." I looked at him. His arms and legs were as thin as sticks. But he is the chief of Galazet, I thought. And now he will make more trouble than before. I wanted to put my arms around him. Suddenly he said, I have a new name. What is it? I asked. I am Chief Tanyozatlopi. That is a very long name, and I cannot say it. You will soon learn, Chief Tanyozatlopi said. Next morning when I woke up, Ramo was not in the hut. He was not outside either. I knew that he was on his way to the boats. I was very frightened when I thought of the dangers. I felt sure that he was going to hurt himself. And so, I decided to follow him. But after a few minutes I changed my mind. Perhaps I should let him do what he wanted. The ship will probably not return for a long time. I thought. Ramo and I are alone on the island, and I need his help. He will have to do a man's work sooner than other boys. He will have to grow up quickly. I turned then and went down to the beach. If Ramo could put a boat in the water, this beach was the end of his journey. And I wanted to be there to welcome him. During the morning I collected many shellfish and watched the sun climb high in the sky. Ramo did not come. I went to the top of the cliff and looked along the coast. I could not see him. I felt frightened again and hurried back to the village. Ramo was not there. I hid the shellfish from the dogs and then left the hut. I ran towards the southwest part of the island where the boats were hidden. I called to Ramo while I was running. He did not answer, but I could hear the dogs. I continued to run, and the sound grew louder. I saw the dogs near the cliffs. There were a lot of them, and they were moving around something. Ramo was lying there. There was a little pool of blood on the ground around his head. There were deep tooth marks in his neck and bites on other parts of his body. He was dead when I picked him up. I looked at the earth and saw his footprints. They stopped before they reached the cliff. 2 dogs were lying on the ground near him. Ramo's spear was sticking out of the side of one of them. I carried Ramo back to the village, and the dogs followed me. Their leader was a big gray dog with long hair and yellow eyes. Later that day they ran off to the west, and the leader went last. I did not sleep that night but stayed awake next to Ramo's body. I made a promise to myself. One day I will kill those dogs, I thought. I will kill all the dogs on the island. I shall have to plan it well. But for most of the night I thought only of Ramo, my brother. Comprehension questions. 1. When the ship moves and Ramo is not there, what does Chief Matasipe say about Ramo? 2. How does Karana reach the beach when she sees her brother leave behind? 3. Why does Ramo declare himself a chief? 4. What happens to Ramo at the end of this chapter? Quick competition. Read the sentences below and find the correct adjective, adverb, or verb used in the story. 1. Ramo was running, the cliff and holding his spear above his head. Forward or along. 2. The air was very clear, and we could see, out to sea. Far or near. 3. One day you will be, enough to lift a large boat. Weak or strong. 4. I looked at him. His arms and legs were as, as sticks. Thin or heavy. 5. He will have to grow up, slowly or quickly. Thank you for listening to this chapter. Now, read the comprehension questions again and try to find the answers in the story. Then, do the quick competition part. Also, The answers are in the explanation part of the video. Check out your answers over there. Moreover, don't forget to subscribe for the new episodes. If you like this chapter, click the like button. To make this project more effective and beneficial, let me know in the comments below.